how did you find those key resources in the org? How were you able to find, new in the org, 2 years back, how were you able to find those people?
I think you kind of start at the top and
Okay.
you kind of work your way through, right? And then they're like,
Uh-huh.
oh, you should talk to so-and-so on my team. And then you go talk to so-and-so, and then they might put you in, and then people change roles. And so that's also a good time. With acquisitions, I think titles don't mean anything, and they mean a lot of different things depending. So as people are trying to find their fit within the new org structure, you'll see like they got a new title, and you might reach out and just be like, hey, what does that mean? What are you doing? And what did you do before? Like, that's a big question. And I've, you just uncover so many people in your organization that while their title says this, they've really done all these other things. And you're like, okay, even though that's not 100% part of your official job title, I'd like to pick your brain on this and that. And so it's just, you start making these connections, and part of it just takes time, right? I start at the top. I start with, my peers at other levels in different orgs, but then you're in a meeting and somebody pops up and you're like, who's this person? And then you reach out and make a contact, and then just kind of goes from there.
So it seems like you basically approached almost as a research question, where you went and asked people, hey, what do you know about research? Who should I talk to? Is that, or yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and, coming from both the research and a design perspective, a lot of our acquisition companies didn't have design as a formal process, let alone research, right? And so it's kind of like, tell me how you did this before. If you had this problem to solve, how did you figure out what it was going to do? And, like just understanding where they came from and what their processes were before is huge, because again, you have an acquisition, people get put into different buckets, and you have no idea of knowing if they were in the right bucket and what else do they know that you just don't know about. So it's really, yeah, your coworkers become your users, and you've got to talk to them and understand their backgrounds and their histories. And you find so much knowledge out there that you can utilize. Research was more of an afterthought. And really what we have shifted over the last year and a half, 2 years, is to putting research first, to getting ahead of projects and doing true discovery with our product teams, and as well as validation, and just trying to come full circle with research. It's not just about learning about the problem, but did we solve it correctly, and just going through all the cycles. And again, we have more room for growth there, but that's definitely the big inroads we've been able to make, is getting out ahead of our product and development teams on research.
So making that kind of shift where there is very little research as an afterthought, to research as almost a guide to the rest of the product, and building that culture of research probably requires change at all level, all the way to the top, all the way down to individual designers. So it's a massive change that you brought into the org. And I'm sure you use like different tactics at different organization levels. So let's start with the product team itself, right? Like you said, it was a culture of a company of acquisitions, a lot of different teams. How were you able to get to these teams and say, hey, by the way, let's now start caring about research as individual teams as well?
Yeah, again, I think it comes back to education and just knowing, sometimes you can observe people making guesses in terms of this is the direction, because I talked to one customer, this is their request, this is where I need to go, and really inserting UX into that process and saying, what do other customers need? If we make this change for this one, what impact does it have on others? Let us go talk to a few other people and see. And so as you start building in that as a best practice, it starts to become expected. And then it just slowly shifts over time. So as you make those suggestions and say, hey, why don't you give me a week? Let me go talk to a couple more people, learn a little bit more. And then you pull those insights together and you can share those. I think it really starts to help people see the power in what we're doing. And then it becomes not we're giving you that time, we'll slow down just a little bit to give you that time. Instead, they're coming to us and asking, hey, can you do this research before I get started? So I think it's that experience of once they get a little taste of it and how it can help them and they see that, then they start expecting it and needing it for everything. And that's really what you want to do, is you want to kind of get them hooked on it.
Mm-hmm. So giving them kind of initial support and help and time to do for you to do some research for them, and then say, hey, look, doesn't that make your job a little easier or a lot easier?
Yeah. And I mean, I think probably everybody on this call can think of times where you've gone on a project without research and you realize once you've gone down that path that it wasn't the right path and you're not solving the right problem, or you're, not meeting all the requirements because you didn't uncover them ahead of time. And I think we found ourselves in that spot a few times. And as we talked to customers, we realized if we had had that information at the start of the project, maybe we wouldn't have gone down that path, or we would have chosen a new one. So I think it's kind of some lessons learned there, where even if maybe that research came in later than we would have liked, it still serves a good purpose to show the value in what we're doing.
How do you go to the stakeholders and say, hey, this work is going to take a little longer now because we are going to start including research? How do you convince them?
So I think we've proven the value of the research, and also giving our design team that runway too. So I feel like everybody's on board. I don't think it was much in convincing, it was more of organizing. And that's where our research and design roadmap came in. And so our team is part of the product team. So all of my peers are the directors of various product lines, and they all had a roadmap of what their products were going to do. And that was important to me to get our team in the same conversation, right? We want to use the same language. So if all of our products have a roadmap, why doesn't my team have a roadmap? It ties to all of those product roadmaps, absolutely. But it's twofold. I mean, if we have a product initiative that is slated for Q3 for development to start, well, guess what? Research and design wants to be on it on Q1, Q2, so that we are, we've got our work cut out for us and we can be ahead and we build that time in. So we've been able to do that for this year. Like, we produced a roadmap that goes right alongside of our product roadmaps. And it's also a really nice piece because I saw what our product teams had to push to the next year's roadmap, right? Things that were right on the edge. And so what our team can then do is bring those into our design and research roadmap for this year. So the business sees that we are getting ahead and we are making progress. We may not be building it yet, but we're making progress and we're getting feedback, and those customers can see that we're actually working on things. So it really helps all the way around in getting buy-in. So I don't feel like it's a hard conversation once you can get to that point. The hardest part is getting that runway to get ahead. And that's a transition. We brought efficiency to the design and research process. Over time, we naturally got ahead. And by then, people were seeing the buy-in. When I first started, we were getting requirements or requests, and they needed something within a day, 2 days, 3 days, right? These crazy turnaround times. And I think over time, as we were able to start talking to them and building those relationships and explaining how we work, then they're like, oh, well, I know about this one thing. It's coming down here in a month. Let me tell you about it now so you can get started. So it was, again, it comes back to the education piece and people really understanding what you do and what you can bring to the table and how it will help them. So then they start raising their hand. I've already got tons of stuff hitting my plate now for Q2 of people with stuff they want from our team. So we're getting that assigned out because people know if they give us plenty of time, we're going to deliver, what they need.
No, that's amazing, and to be able to do that in 2 years, that's really impressive. So it seems like research roadmap almost became this tool not only for you to stay organized, but also a way to communicate with the rest of the org the value of research. Hey, we are going to do this research in Q1. What else would you like us to do? And then circling back and said, we did the research that you asked us to do. Here are the results. Seems like research roadmap became that tool to not just educate, but also showcase the value.
Absolutely. And time will tell because the roadmap's just rolled out. But that's the plan, right? Is we want all of our departments aware of the work that we're doing because they all have different touch points with different customers. And if they can see something on our roadmap and say, hey, I just talked to Joe Smith over at this organization, they'd be great for that session. just helping us make those connections, but also, like you said, being able to share out the results. So one of the things that we do for that is a quarterly newsletter. So we highlight like some of our, big design initiatives that we've been working on for the quarter. We highlight research findings. So like we had a conference in North Carolina last month, and we had tons of, insights that we learned. So we just put bite-sized clips together and made those available across the organization so people can view those. Again, just keeps coming back to communicating across the org what we do, and people come to you. We have people from product marketing going, hey, what research do you have on this topic? Because I need to work on some promotional pieces, and what can you tell me about this? So it's becoming this tool where people have different needs for it, but the more that we can understand what they need, so product marketing tell me ahead of time what they need to know, we can build that into our research too. Our primary goal of research is designing the right solution, but it doesn't hurt to pepper in some of that stuff the other teams can benefit from as well. Not to sound like a Marvin advertisement, but it actually has been critical for us. I mean, and I've done this in the past with other tools, but Marvin makes it really easy because we can just pull those clips, pull things together and share it with the board. If anybody has worked with the board, they want bite-sized information. They don't want to read a whole PowerPoint presentation or, a whole 20-page PDF of all of your findings. They want, what are the quick wins? And they want to hear it directly from the customer. And that is what we're able to do with Marvin and share that with them. And so then we've had requests come back after a few of those have been shared up. I've had people from the board come back and say, hey, what do you have on this topic? And so we've actually got some research going on right now to answer one of the topics that they're interested in. And it's information that will feed into our product roadmaps anyway. So it works out well. And this comes back to that point we were talking about earlier, is understanding the needs of different levels of the business. So you're not just doing the research to solve the one problem, but you can also answer a few questions for the board, give product marketing a few key points that they can work with. And that gets you so much more buy-in across the organization because you're helping everybody and you still achieve what you're trying to achieve as well.
So research goes beyond just product and being able to showcase that value in form of not like detailed research reports, but short clips directly delivered either in the inbox or in board deck, like, hey, here is a 30-second or 1-minute clip. Seems like that has played a key role in buying kind of leadership from the top of the org.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a time and place for detailed research. I'm not saying that needs to go away. It's definitely needed. You still want to keep doing that. But at the same time, delivering those summaries will get you so much buy-in across your organization without people feeling like they've got to slog through all of the recommendations and detailed minutia that we go through.
Question. If you were to take, the audience was to take like one or two key takeaways from this conversation, from your last, your years of experience, some practical advice, what advice would you give these people?
I think making those connections with your internal stakeholders is key. Know who these people are, talk to them like you would your users, find out what they need. How are their jobs going, right? Because you might identify places where you can help with them. And I think that is huge in terms of being able to build those relationships, because it gets your foot in the door when you need introductions on the other side. And then making it very visible what your team is learning.